Meissner makers, we just came back from our most recent Anita Good event in San Jose. We had a fantastic time. One of the things that always comes up when we do these programs though is how do I quilt my quilts using my embroidery machine? So that's what I want to talk about today and show you just a couple of examples and some things to keep in mind if you're planning to quilt your quilt using your embroidery machine. So the first thing to think about is what type of effect are you looking for? This particular quilt that has a pantograph or an edge-to-edge style design is not really practical for using your embroidery machine. It'll take you a little bit of time to continuously hoop, 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 and hoop literally every bit of the quilt itself. So from a time standpoint, this is really going to be a little faster for you to mark the quilt and quilt it on your own. Now if you're looking at something that's a little more traditional, where you have blocks and other areas that you want to fill, you do want to map out and think about which areas are best quilted using the embroidery machine and which areas might be better suited to traditional free motion quilting or using your walking foot. So in this case, I chose to have decorative or embroidered motifs in the center of each square. If they had been left just by themselves, they'd have been a little flat. It would have looked uneven in the quilting itself. So I did come back and add some filler stippling around the blocks to really pop that decorative work. A quilt does best if it is stitched in the ditch strategically to make sure that things don't shift over the lifetime of the quilt. That's also best done traditionally using your walking foot. And then some just decorative fill work in the latticing and the areas around the squares. Now because quilting tension and embroidery tension are really very different, you do want to take that into account when you're planning how you want to manage the quilt. Embroidery tension is very loose on the top and very tight on the bottom. In quilting, you want something that's very even. Now it is possible to adjust the tension on your embroidery machine for even tension when you are embroidering. For newer embroiderers, to take some of the stress off of adjusting the tension or having to test out multiple designs, I prefer to have the top put together, put the top and the batting only, no backing, and do my embroidery through those two layers only. Then I put the back on, do my stitching in the ditch, the rest of my decorative work, and finish my quilt that way. So for this type of a technique, what you would do is once again, start with your top and your batting layer only. I would have my decorative design or my quilting motif already selected and loaded on my machine. I'm going to hoop my project. Now I do like to use my templates to make sure that I keep everything nice and squared and aligned. We're going to use a panel as a practice piece because it's a nice way for us to get comfortable with a technique without having to invest the time in piecing everything together. And I'm going to treat this area as if it were a block. So I use my template to make sure that as I hoop, I'm hooping, keeping that block nice and squared on the X and the Y axis. And I do like to shoot for getting the block in the center of the hoop, so it gives me the maximum area to adjust if I need it. You'll want to loosen up the screw on your hoop quite a bit because you do have the extra thickness of the batting. Scoop everything up, keeping your template aligned with the edge, the seam allowances or seam edges of your blocks. Place the inner ring into the outer ring, and if you've loosened it up sufficiently, you should be able to pull that outer ring right around and then tighten up the screw. From here, we take it to the machine and we stitch. Once I complete all of the areas that would have decorative or embroidered quilting motifs, I would attach the back and then go back through and add some echo quilting and some additional filler stitches. If you'd like to learn about these techniques and more, we do have an Anita Good Designs event coming up in our Sacramento location in May. So be sure to check the website and register early as seating does fill up quickly.